Welcome, friends. Hello, how are you all doing? Great to be part of you again in one of our weekly Q&A sessions. As we have already undergone in the previous weekly sessions, we are again going to discuss a new set of 10 PMI sample cloned questions which appeared in the real exam, but we have gone ahead and reworded those questions and made you as close as possible to the real PMP questions as it gets. So I am as excited as you all are to help take you through all these questions. And as always, feel free to go ahead and type in any comments whatsoever you have. I will be more than happy to go ahead and help guide you on anything pertaining to not only these questions, but also from the PMP perspective or the PMP subject perspective end to end. Also, very importantly, if you have any questions on the sixth versus seventh edition, we have already discussed earlier as well. It's still the sixth edition. Let me again go ahead and share with you the link for those who are attending newly today. Here you go. Hi Prashant. Hi Indumati. Welcome all to this new set of 10 questions, 10 PMP sample clone questions, which we'll be soon going into. I am happy and also eager to go ahead and take you forward and, look forward to not only familiar friends, but also, some new unfamiliar faces as well. Feel free to go ahead and, comment. So when I go ahead and, by the way, when I go ahead and share with you the questions, so read the questions, take that minute at your end, and feel free to go ahead and chat. Put the option which is the correct one out there, and then I will go ahead and take you forward end to end. I am doing good, Dikshit. How about you? All good, hopefully. Hi, Gautam. I hope you are in the right spirit and the right mode to go ahead and ace all these questions. New set of questions, pretty interesting, and happens from the agile perspective itself. One of my mentees was asking why it's only agile. The reason being that around 70 to 80% of the questions in PMP 2021 are coming from the agile perspective itself. So, agile happens to be one of the critical aspects or perspectives. But nevertheless, not discounting the predictive part. The predictive part is equally important for the exam, and many of you who are already mentees, with us, obviously, know what's the importance of each of the predictive chapters. Yeah, Pushpalata, I will definitely go ahead and share with you the schedule. Now, very importantly, our live sessions go ahead and start September 11th, 2021. So you can go ahead and enroll in our website. Let me go ahead and share with you the link out here. And very importantly, if you have any queries pertaining to your schedule, which is very, very important. Now, if the schedule goes out and caters to every one of your requirements. Now, say for example, Siva Kumar might have, some particular constraints. He might need to go out and get done with PMP by the end of September, or Indumati might need to go out and get done within, say, November. Yeah, so someone else like Pushpalata, you can go ahead and get done, or might need to get done, within as soon as say middle of September. So all these queries or all these constraints will be taken care of from our end, and that's how we'll go ahead and take you forward. So very, very important. If you have any queries pertaining to EduHubSpot going ahead and helping you in your PMP preparation, so you can feel free to go ahead and send me a mail, and I will be there. I will go ahead and call you from my personal phone, or even I am perfectly fine to go ahead and chat live over Zoom one on one with you, and go ahead and take care of all your queries. I normally do that with my mentees. So many of you who are already mentees out here will be knowing how I go ahead and take it forward. So our bootcamp or Edua Sports bootcamp is not only catering to the live sessions. It's also my one-on-one mentorship or Varun's one-on-one mentorship with you guys. To go ahead and help you tide over any queries, any doubts, any clarifications whatsoever. Now, getting to the business perspective or the business side of things, PMP 180 questions, 230 minutes, 1.26 minutes per questions. Yes, very important. Follow the 30-30-30 strategy. And we have seen over the last sessions what's the big importance of this particular strategy. First 30 seconds catering to reading the question carefully. Very, very important. Each of the questions will have the clues in itself. So if you are, say, for example, doubtful about choosing any one of the options which are very close, now those options can be two or even three or even all four, which seems to be very close to each other, where the difficulty of the question goes ahead and increases. There, very importantly, go ahead and strike off those options which seem to you can't be valid. And where will you go ahead and get the clue? From the case itself. We in this session will go ahead and see how to go ahead and apply that strategy, feed it into elimination and take it forward end to end. That's how you go ahead and take it forward. Yes, very important. Keep in mind, you'll have to go ahead and focus question by question by question, which is also where I, yeah, will also go ahead and share my tips, tricks, and strategies and do my level best to ensure that you go ahead and have the focus, ready before you go ahead and attempt the exam. The focus is not only important for the studies, it's also for the exam as well. You need to be mentally and physically, which is very important. And given the results where you get to page, people are mentees are going and scoring way above target. It gives me immense happiness that these tips and tricks and strategies are immensely beneficial. And you know what? When I find the real happiness, I find the real happiness when my mentees go out and reach me out and say that, Soumya, I'm able to go ahead and carry out these of your these tips and tricks of yours, in my real or professional world itself, or in my personal world itself. I'm able to seamlessly balance all three. I'm able to go ahead and manage all three. That's what the project management all about, right? Managing individually on all these three facets. Yeah, so get yourself ready, get yourself set for the real time questions whatsoever, and then we'll go ahead and have to go ahead and pitch in into the right facet. Thanks Gautam, that's a big comment from your end. Definitely you'll go ahead and track, and the way in which you are showing the progress so whatsoever, definitely things will be on the brighter side. I also go ahead and see a comment where someone is asking, what's the tentative time period for the exam preparation? Now, it's subjective, and many of you, especially my mentees, know why it is subjective. Someone might have only 1 to 2 hours per day, someone might have 3 to 4 hours, or someone, in lieu of the leaves that he or she has taken at his or her end, might have more than 7 to 8 hours to go ahead and cater to the studies. Our study plan will cater to each and every one of your requirements. And it's not only the facet where I go ahead and share with you the study plan and then turn back, saying that you get done with PMP. No, your goal is my goal as well. Yes, so I will go ahead and ensure that you stay focused and get yourself done with the preparation end to end. Get the queries coming, get all the doubts clarified, perfectly open over WhatsApp, perfectly open over email. Might take some time, possibly 3 to 4 hours, but perfectly fine. So why not get started? Feel free to go ahead and put forward your comments over the chat section, and I will be more than happy to oblige for each and every of your requests. Yeah, I also have this email ID of mine being mentioned out there, so feel free to reach out if you have any queries anytime. Okay, so here comes the first question. So, all of you get set for yet another session of 10 weekly sample PMI clone questions. Here you go, and here gets the timer started. So, last 20 seconds. Okay, so you're done with the time. Any other entries coming in? So, I see there are a lot of B's out here. So, no one else, no other option. B seems so stark. Let's see what's the answer to this question. Okay, so the product owner needs to apply more accurate, that's very important, more accurate business value estimates to the product backlog. Okay, so what does that mean is, the product backlog, which comprises of, several epics, features, or themes, whatever you are putting it into inside the product backlog. So now, those features or those epics or themes inside the backlog needs to have more accurate business value estimates. The product owner, who is very, very close to the product, he needs more accurate business value estimates to the product backlog. Yeah, so very, very important to get each and every facet and each and every sentence, understood end to end correctly. Now, in order to do that, the product owner needs a more precise view of the actual time spent on the tasks. Now, this is the need of the hour. Actual time spent on the task. The product owner needs a more precise view of the same. Now, as a project manager, what would you recommend the owner to go ahead and help address the problem? So, you say, for example, are the project manager, you have to go ahead and recommend the product owner regarding what? Regarding finding a more precise view of the actual time spent on the tasks. So, that is the task at your end. Now, what would you recommend in that case? Option A, go ahead with replanning the rest of the project to make use of flow based agile and standard hourly scheduling. Now, very important, the task out here is to go ahead and find out the actual time spent on the tasks. Flow based agile or standard hourly scheduling, will that be helpful in coming out with the actual time spent? No. Option B, explain the product owner that estimating flexible units enable agile to accelerate delivery of business value. Now, very, very important, what do we mean by flexible units out here? So, is it referring to the story points, whatever we assign, being flexible? So, if at all it is being referring to this or this aspect or point, of course it is not. If it is referring to something else, well, that's entirely out of the context. Remember, at any point of time, the story points, whatever gets assigned as part of the story at the start of the sprint, those stays fixed all throughout the life of the sprint, from the start till the end, till the point when you are demoing the user story to the customer. And once you're done with the sprint velocity should be comprising of the story point which you had estimated at the earlier extent itself. So there is no point of the story point being flexible. So why should I go ahead and explain the same? Very important, from agile perspective, the scope is definitely flexible, that no one has any doubts about. But the scope, which is in turn refracted into epics, themes, user stories, and other aspects inside the project product backlog, well, that doesn't have any leeway to go ahead and give you the actual picture on how you can come out with the actual time spent on the tasks. You need to come out with something with regards to time out here. That's the key or the critical feature. If you see option C, training the team on making use of the ideal R units and guide them to re-estimate the product backlog. Very, very important out here. So you get to have a hint of how to make use of the time. Now you might be asking me, what are these ideal R units? Now, very important, if you get such kind of an option in the real exam itself, you don't need to panic. That's the first thing that you need to do. You just need to get the hint from the question itself that whatever the option or the answer, has to be, that has to be pertinent to time. That has to relate some way or the other to the time. And if something speaks of the ideal R units or any R units whatsoever, making use of the same and guide them to re-estimate the backlog, that as such directly or indirectly has to be your standout option. If you see option D out here, in order to increase precision of time usage calculations, halve the iteration length to 1 week. Now you might be saying that this is also related to time, right? Okay, well and good. If say for example C and D are the closest of the two options with regards to time, and if we see D, in D, it is asking about increasing the precision of time usage calculations, as though whatever calculations that you are making are not correct. It is asking to increase the precision of the usage calculations. That's perfectly fine. But the second part of the sentence, half the iteration length to 1 week, how does that or what does that have to do with the precision? Or what does that have to do with coming out with the actual time spent on task? Does the iteration length have anything to do with these calculations? Remember what I said at the start of the session. If there are two options very close to each other, you have to do away with one option which doesn't stand out. So I'm just clearing the picture out here. So here goes all the four options. And when you have each of these four options standing out to you, where you have to find a clue about the time that is spent on tasks, you see that options C and D are very close to each other. Then you go ahead and negate or cancel out the time or the option which talks about, you know, definitely about the precision of time usage, which stands out and is perfectly fine. But then halving the iteration length, that doesn't stand any chance with regards to you coming out with the actual time spent on task. You have to be very, very careful in reading the whole option end to end. Options A and B are anyways negated out, but if you see options C and D, out of that D can be negated, and by virtue of elimination, C stands out. You reread the option C, train the team on making use of the ideal R units. Could be any ideal R units, could be some, R units which you make use of in the team itself to go ahead and take forward in terms of the calculation. And guide them. That's the key thing. And guide them to re-estimate the backlog by virtue of something. It's perfectly fine. Yeah, so let's go ahead and see what the option is out here. So as you see, option C is the standout option. The ideal hours for estimating work time on stories can be more practical to convert to business value. This is the explanation that has been given out there from PMI. So, as such, it makes sense, even though, you are not aware or completely unaware, on ideally of about, ideal hour units, then also you still have, some kind of, link which actually goes there and helps you guide the or re-estimate the product backlog. Now, any questions? Yes, Apple, you are bang on. Yes, Indumati, bang on. Yes, absolutely, Ghazal. We have to recommend the product owner. So this is the recommendation that's being provided from your end, yeah, end to end to the product owner out here. That how about going ahead and training the team or making use of the RDLR units to help them, re-estimate the backlog. Yeah, so very important. There are several facets to go ahead and take care of or make note of. One of the facets being that, when you are in two minds as to which to go ahead and choose, so then you have to have a very strong option or very strong reason by virtue of which you can negate the option which doesn't stand out. And secondly, very importantly, if you have seen out here and made note of the facet, the question, the option, the right option comes from the question itself. It is hidden inside the question. Yeah, so you can make use of the option from the question itself and go ahead and dig deep. If you read or reread the question, you find that the actual time is the key out here. Negate out A and B, you're left with option C and D, and then further eliminate and come out with option C. Precisely the way in which you can go ahead and take it forward. Moving on. Okay, here goes your next question. Starting the timer. Okay, so we are done with the time. Let's see what the question is talking about. So out here, you are part of an agile project that's structured without time boxing. Now, what is time boxing? The same fundamental principle by virtue of which we go ahead and time box a sprint into 1 week or a 2 week sprint based on our requirement, and convert it into an iteration. And also, the same time boxing by which or by virtue of which we go at a time box the sprint meetings, yeah, be it the daily scrum or the sprint planning or the sprint review or the sprint retro, into fixed time bound meetings whatsoever. The same time boxing that I am talking about primarily into time boxing the iterations into sprint. Okay, so sprint are nothing but time box iterations. Remember that sprints are nothing but time box iterations. Okay, now high level goals help group the tasks, but the tasks cannot be predictively scheduled. Very important. High level goals help you go ahead and group the tasks, but these tasks which you are grouping cannot be predictively scheduled inside the project which I am talking about. Now, which of the options and three of those depict how can the work be distributed for efficient execution? Now, at first go, and it's very natural, you might not be getting head or tail out of this question. What it is actually talking about. In one go, it is talking about time boxing. In the other go, in the second sentence, it goes out and helps you group the goals into tasks. And now it says that the tasks cannot be predictively scheduled. And now it is asking you to go ahead and come out with the work that can be distributed for efficient execution. So what will be the option pertaining to this particular question whatever has been given? Even before you jump into the options, you have to go ahead and think through what could be the best clue out here. The best clue is obviously the tasks, right? So anything, any tasks would be your go. That's first and most. Now the out here would be how to make these tasks more efficient. Yeah, and there would be three out of those. It might be that you have five options. You have to go ahead and choose three out of those. Only two would stand out or stand. You can go ahead and eliminate. Let's see now what are the options. See, I have taken first 30 seconds to go ahead and read the question properly and figure out my strategy to ace the options. Now I'll make use of another 30 max to read through the options, and then when I read through the options, I'll make use of the 30 seconds remaining to go ahead and choose. You won't be needing even those 30 seconds out here in this particular question. Let's see how. We have anyways come out or being we are done with these 30 seconds initially, so we already know right now what are the hints that we should be looking forward to. Let's see. Option A: make sure that deadlines are in place to ensure that the team gets work within the acceptable limits. Very, very important. You are part of an agile project that's structured without time boxing. Time boxing can't be availed out here. Yes. So now, if you are talking about making sure that deadlines are in place, so then you are directly saying or challenging that time boxing doesn't, or without time boxing, none of the agile projects have been able to be driven to success, or none of the agile projects can be managed efficiently. Is that the case? Very, very important. No, right? There are cases, especially in, say, for example, flow-based agile, where even without time boxing, you can go ahead and manage the work efficiently. Now, it's all based on the requirements. Doesn't force fit. It's not like a pill that for this particular, pain, you have this kind of painkiller. You have to go to the root cause and then see which kind of strategy goes there and works for you the best. So out here, option A says that deadlines are inefficient, and you will have to go ahead and come out with a different option to make sure that the work gets done. No, that won't be the option right away. Make use of task board to group tasks into rows and keep track of progress across columns. Now, going back to the original strategy, we were on the lookout of options which holds tasks and options which goes ahead and helps us come out with efficient ways to which or in lieu of which we can manage these tasks efficiently. Are we able to see that particular kind of theme out here? Absolutely. First and foremost, you are making use of task boards. Secondly, you are going ahead and keeping track of the progress across columns from that task boards by grouping it in some of the other way. Stand out. Yes, so you keep that ballpark. Option C: come out with a to-do task pool to restrict the number of tasks in progress. Again, tasks, one of the key features which is matching out, and restricting the number of tasks in progress. That's also helping us to go ahead and up our efficiency. So if we restrict the number of tasks in progress, we are able to focus only on those tasks. Our throughput is high and we are going ahead and taking it forward end to end in the proper way possible. One of the best ways in which we can go ahead and take our work to completion end to end. Option B is also a good option. Option D, determine the order of execution by predetermining blockers. Now, are we talking about blockers out here in the question? That should be your first question. If you are not talking about blockers inside the scope of the question, we are not supposed to assume that it's the blockers which are causing some issue. It might well be taken care of inside the project. Why will I go ahead and bother my head about blockers when it's not at all being talked about inside the scope of the question? Option D gets ruled out. Option E, a team in initiating tasks at the right time by tracking the readiness statuses. Again, first thing, tasks, and also you're going ahead and initiating this task at the right time. You're helping the team in that by tracking something. See, both of our key facets are being taken care of out here. Yeah, so let me again erase all these and make it as simple as possible. So, from this question, you had to come out with efficient execution strategies which are catering to tasks, yeah, making them more efficient to deal with. That's your question. Also, very importantly, it was mentioned about no time box being present. Now, time box being present or not is not a determining factor for efficient execution. It can easily be executed efficiently without time boxing as well, which is why we negated option A. Options B, C, and E went ahead and talked about tasks as well as ways in which we can manage these tasks more efficiently. So, options A and D, on the contrary, doesn't talk about that. Has to be options B, C, and E. If we go back and select, here you go. So once you can go for the work distribution in a flow based agile more efficient if the task triggering is constantly monitored in a flow, a pool of tasks to do limits in a concurrent way, or in the task board displays progress stages in columns potentially with task grouped by rows. So it is directly taking a flow based agile approach where you don't have any kind of time boxing. And in such case, the best way is to go ahead and help deal with the tasks are you going ahead and monitoring the task to reduce lag, the pool of tasks to do limits, the concurrent tasks. In fact, the three options whichever we talked about or spoke about. So even if you are not assuming that it is a flow based agile approach, do you see how best we can go ahead and deal with this question? Very simple to go ahead and deal with any question whatsoever possible by following these simple strategies. Let me see your comments. Okay, I see Nitya, Ravishankar, Mohit, all pointing correctly. Even Gautam as well. Awesome, Gautam. Okay, so I hope all of you are able to now understand very clearly why it is B, C, and A and not any of the other options. You don't exactly need to be in the same way where the exam setter has gone ahead and written the question, or the mindset from where he or she has written the question. Not necessarily. You've just seen how you can seamlessly go ahead and dissect the question, come out with the relevant keywords which you have to go ahead and have some kind of weightage on in the options, and then go ahead and seamlessly take forward either elimination or keywords technique, come out with the options and take it forward end to end. Let's move on to the next question, and here you go. Okay, so we are done with the time. Awesome, guys. Option D, bang on. See how seamless it works. And as such, D also happens to be the standard option out here in this particular question. Let's see how. Even before that, I see Ratna going ahead and pinging. Awesome, Ratna, to see you back after so many days. I hope everything is okay at your end. Okay, so awesome. Evelyn, Nitya, Vikram Vagesh, Ravi Shankar, everyone. I see so many of you have gone ahead and prompted or gone ahead with the right option itself. Awesome. Let's see what the question is talking about. Okay, so you are the project manager of a new product development project. Now competition is driving prices down. Also, the supply costs happen to be rising. Okay. Which of the following reasons tells for sure as to why an agile incremental approach would be the safest choice in this regard? It's all about this agile incremental approach, the benefits out of it, and why you best go ahead and make use of it. Yes. Option A: stringent methods to reduce cost of quality and conformity. Nothing to do with agile incremental approach, right? Reduces the team size. Well, you don't need to read any of the other stuffs. Agile incremental approach doesn't reduce the team size. You know that very well. Ensures that the project can be cancelled at any time without any loss. Out of context. Speedens the delivery of the business value and minimizes the risk of irrelevance. Absolutely. What do you do in incremental approach? You go ahead and try to come out with the product which goes ahead and delivers value to the optimum level possible. Once you go ahead and get to have that value being driven to the customers, then you go ahead and stand out in the market from your product's perspective. Very, very important when your competitor has also gone ahead and come out in the market with a product where you have to go ahead and pitch in with some of the other product with high levels of value. In such cases, you have to come out with this kind of approach, agile incremental approach, to help save your day. Awesome, guys. Option D is the right option. Let's see out here. So as you see, incremental deliveries cause accelerated business value and better targeting to be able to reach the market faster and benefit for earlier user output input. Very important, agile, faster feedback, faster results. You going ahead and interacting with the customers and getting the feedback ASAP to go ahead and refactor your product as per the need in the market, and obviously going ahead and standing head and shoulders above your market competition. Yeah, so very, very important to keep this particular facet in mind and move forward. Any questions for this particular? Okay, so I see Mark going ahead and having a question. If it's one reason I feel D, and if it is more than one, I feel B and D. I won't say it's B and D. There's no, link of you know option B as such going ahead and standing in play with the agile incremental approach whatsoever, and it does not also go out and talk about you reducing the team size. So that particular question goes out of question out here. So just take that into perspective. It has to be only D. There is no other option which even stands close to option D out here. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Here you go. Great, great, guys. You are on a roll. I see Ashish, Ratna, Dikshit, the fastest finger first. Going ahead and opting for option B fills me with great happiness. Yes, Indumati. Yes, Murli. You're bang on. Yes, Mohit. Absolutely. Let's see why it is. Okay. Okay, so with a mission to promote new programming methodologies, your company has hired a new architectural board. The Agile team keeps working on new and existing software products. Okay, so the question says that with a few or with a focus on new technologies or methodologies, your company has gone ahead and hired a new architectural board. Okay, your team goes ahead and works on new as well as existing software products. Now, which of the following ways reveal as to how should the project manager deal with this scenario? Okay, so has to do something with the architectural board, right? Whatever the option goes ahead and tells you about, even if the question doesn't make head or tail at the outset, if you read it the question, the option has to deal something with the or about the architectural board. Now if there are a couple or even more than two options which goes ahead and talks about the architectural board, you then have to do the best choice, run it across and then see which should be the standout option. Option A: negotiate a quiet period with the board to prevent disruption to the team's work. So is the board in any way going ahead and going, disrupting the team's work whatsoever? So you negotiating a quiet period, would that be, by any means, helpful? Whatever is being talked about is out of context. So the board is not disrupting anything. Board is welcome. And likewise, in any of the other question, if you find a new thing or new methodology or new compliance strategy or anything new coming in into Agile, remember that it has to be dealt with both hands. It has to be welcomed with both hands whatsoever. It is very very important out here. You have to welcome that with both hands. You can't just just ignore or block it, saying that no, we are opposed to any kind of changes, or we are self sufficient with whatever the board is right now. We are not going to entertain any new architectural board. No, you have to welcome them. So any kind of disruption or any talk about that the same without the question not giving any hint about any kind of disruption is entirely out of the context. Option B: invite members of the new board to backlog refinement and sprint planning meetings. Absolutely makes sense, isn't it? You going ahead and involving them in backlog refinement in the sense the product backlog refinement, where you go ahead and continuously refine your product backlog features. Some features which are lagging behind, you go ahead and mark them with high priority, whereas those in high priority might go ahead and sit in second or third rows to go ahead and take it forward. Again, in the next sprint, there might be some of the other features might even get removed from this particular backlog. Some new features might come in, and they might sit at the top of the table. The top of the table is the same top of the table which this team would go ahead and take into consideration into a sprint backlog and go ahead and take forward the stories for implementation. Now this stories moving up, also moving down, and the stories which get removed, all these are is a continuous process out there in Agile. Continuous process, which is again in line with scope being flexible inside Agile. Keep that in mind. Now, inviting the new board to these sessions, that is the backlog refinement sessions, which directly talks about the product, or even the sprint planning meetings where you are going ahead and taking care of the stories which are there at the topmost priority of the backlog. Well, that's what is the need of the hour at your end. Invite them, make them part of the meeting as such, and let them go ahead and help the team end to end. That can possibly start by them going ahead and understanding more about the product and having their words or voice felt during the time of refinement of the backlog or even planning meetings. B is definitely a very good option. Option C: adopt a wait and watch approach until the board gives the explicit instructions. Whenever you see a wait and watch approach, directly cancel. There's no option, no means by which an option which says wait and watch would be the perfect option or the correct option out here. You as the project manager have to deal with it, deal with the scenario. So you going ahead and escalating or even waiting and watching for someone else to go ahead and help you in that particular state obviously doesn't work out. Or even option D: let the agile team know that the resulting changes will get delayed as long as possible. Obviously you're kind of taking your hands off from this particular scenario doesn't work out. Has to be option B which is stand out. Let's see. So as you see out here, let the team obtain early inputs by inviting the SMEs to planning meetings. SMEs in the sense the SMEs or the subject matter experts, from the new architectural board that has been formulated. Let them go out and participate in the sprint planning meetings or even the backlog refinement. This would as such help the team adapt to the future needs and avoid any future rework. As simple as it gets. Yeah. Any questions on this particular? Okay, so Stephen happens to go out and pass in all domains. Awesome, Stephen. Congratulations, Spot. Proud of you. Really proud of you. And I presumably have seen you in participating in one of the few other weekly sessions. I hope that, these sessions was of benefit to you as well. Congratulations and all the very best for your future. For any other needs, feel free to reach us out at any point of time. Okay, so I hope that none of you have any doubts on this particular question. You got the thought process or the mindset from which to go ahead and ace this question end to end. Let's move on to the next. And here you go. Okay, so time is up. Aman, Ratna, Dikshit, Chirag. Awesome. Mohit. Anyone new? Anyone wants to go ahead and give it a try? Prashant says it's B. Okay, we'll see. Anyone else? Great guys. I see the majority going in the right direction, which definitely boosts the purpose of this session. Evelyn, awesome. Let's dig deep into the question and see why is it option C or any other options. Okay, so you are the project of an agile team. One of the frustrated agile team members approaches you to complain that a senior team member is monopolizing all the interesting backlog items. So what does that mean? You have a set of items, obviously the prioritized one, after the product backlog refinement has been done. Now out of those prioritized one is some senior team member which whom by virtue of his or her seniority goes ahead and pulls in all the interesting questions, or not questions, talking about questions only, huh? All the interesting stories or features out there, and wishes to go ahead and get done with those inside the scope of the sprint. Now, which of the following means or ways reveal as to how should the project manager address this particular complaint? So there has been a serious complaint that a senior team member is more often than not going ahead and monopolizing all the interesting backlog items into his or her fray. Now, as a project manager, how can I best address this particular complaint? Okay, so option A says come out with a new rule so that the team members can select an item on a rotational basis. Okay, not bad. Stressed on fairness with the senior team member. Now, very important, there's a problem as such out here, and by fairness, you are possibly referring to the fact that let's be fair in going out and distributing all the stories to all the team members out here. And I see that one of you have also chosen option B. Is not bad option also. Yeah. Option C, ask the team to come out with new ground rules for work distribution. Very, very important. Now, these ground rules are a set of rules, you know, which goes ahead and seamlessly aligns with the agreement that your team goes ahead and somehow down the line goes ahead and caters to, raises their hands and says that we will definitely be adhering or abiding by these ground rules throughout the entire duration of the project. And if there are any violations, well, we will be referring to those ground rules to help meet out those violations. Now, where do we see the mention of these ground rules? Which document? It is the team charter. The team charter, which outlines the roles and responsibilities for the team. That team charter will be having the ground rules, the rules by virtue of which the entire team will be bound and going ahead with the relevant work distribution and obviously getting the work done. Very important in cases of conflict, or in such cases where you have a complaint being raised, these ground rules are your savior. Everyone will refer to these ground rules. And if these ground rules, very importantly, take into consideration any rules, from fairness perspective, or any new rule with regards to you going and selecting the item on a rotational basis, or if, say, for example, in option D, which again says about a new rule to help enable team members select an item on a rotational basis. In fact, it's kind of a restatement of option A itself in some of the other way. So all these facets will be dealt with inside one document itself. So even though these new rules might entice you and might provoke you to go ahead and select option A or B or even D, those should get negated. Those are not the right option because C happens to be the best of the lot. The other options are definitely good, but C happens to take care of all the facets of options A, B, and D and goes ahead and makes it even more seamless. Okay, so moving out and selecting option C. So, as you see, any conflict based on misunderstanding or any stated assumption, gives an indication that the ground rules aren't complete, and agile teams should collaborate to come out with their own ways of working, and enlighten or rather update the ground rules as and when the time comes, so that they should go ahead and keep that, in fray whenever such kind of misunderstanding or conflict situations arise. Self-organizing teams, yes. Indumati, perfect, bang on team charter. Ethics, yes, absolutely. Now, very important. It's not unethical to go ahead and ask or have a team member going ahead with most interesting ones. He might be going ahead and doing from the purpose of not only his or her interest, but also from the perspective of him or her going ahead and performing to the optimum levels of productivity. It's after all a self-organizing team, right? So there is no rule as to why someone might not be going ahead with some particular item and going ahead and sharing with some. There's no ground rule whatsoever. It's a team which works in unison, self-organizing. You give them the work, they will go ahead and get done. But now, question out here is that there has been a kind of a mood, or a kind of an atmosphere of dissent, by virtue of which you as a team have to go ahead and somewhere down the line see how best to go ahead and drive the efficiency. Yeah, or how best to go ahead and see that it's not only that senior member but others also who are interested in those items. Why not they also go ahead and have a say? It's not an ethical issue, I would say, but it's somewhere down the line being kind of fair to others, abiding the code of conduct whatsoever for everyone, and also helping the team build and also have kind of mutual respect towards one another or each other. Yes, absolutely, Aman. You're bang on. Agile teams are self-managed and empowered to take the decisions. Absolutely. And that's where, from that self-empowerment, and thanks for putting this particular point forward, that self-empowerment triggers the team to go ahead and come out with these ground rules and also abide by these ground rules as and when they, go ahead and take forward. If there isn't a need for updating the ground rules, please do that. So those go ahead and get fed into the team charter. So team charter at the outset, even before starting the project, everyone is aware of what's expected in terms of conduct from their end. If there has to be some of the other new clause to be added, please feel free to go ahead and add those at any point of time. But if you have seen the strategy out here, option A talks about a new rule, option B stresses on fairness, option D again talks about a new rule. But it's only option C which goes and binds all these and stands out as the best option. These are also favorite ways of giving questions from PMI perspective and taking it forward. Okay, we are done with 5 of the questions out here. I want to reiterate to all of you that we need your love, we need your participation, we need your enthusiasm to help take or drive these sessions forward. And whomsoever will be viewing this particular video after we are done, obviously will also get benefited from your comments. So very very important, yeah, to go ahead and like, share, comment on these on this particular video. The link happens to be this. Let me again go ahead and reshare the link with all of you. So please share this link, with all of your friends and colleagues who are interested to know more about Agile or are interested in getting done with PMP. Please share that, and also I would request every one of you to go ahead and share any of your comments or even your questions out there on the YouTube channel once you are done, or we are done, going through this particular session. So that would be an awesome way of going out and increasing our participation and also helping others, who look forward to help from our end. Chirag, team charter formal document? Yes, absolutely. It is a formal document. Absolutely. Thanks, Ashish, for pitching in with your words of advice. Absolutely. It is a formal project document. Please read that out there. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Here you go. Okay, any options? Awesome, Chirag. You have nailed it. Anyone else? Anyone else? Any other options? Yes, Santosh. Okay, Vikram thinks it's A. Anyone else? Murli thinks it's C. Isaac thinks it's D. Okay, let's see. Anyone else? Any other options? Okay, Sumit thinks it's A. Prashant thinks it's C. Okay, so Naga is tied between B and C. We'll see. As I mentioned, and I keep reiterating that if you're tied between two options, go for both of the options and see which of the ones you can go ahead and negate in entirety. You'll get to see, the other option which is stand out, and you go ahead and choose that and move on. Very simple procedure to apply and very effective to up your accuracy. Okay, let's dig deep into the question. And here we go. R&D executive occasionally visits the agile team's work area, providing instructions on urgent feature work. Okay, now very very important when it talks about agile and when it talks about some person like the R&D executive occasionally visiting the team to go out and provide instructions or guidance or anything whatsoever, he or she is welcome. Now, this might go ahead and kind of, you know, collide with the thought process of you as a scrum master or a servant leader going ahead and shielding your team from any outside interference. Yes, obviously, you are supposed to go ahead and shield the team, in terms of protecting them from an outside interference. But you are never opposed to going ahead and, improving your team to a different level or, extend altogether, right? Now, if someone goes ahead and unnecessarily, pokes their nose and brings down the productivity of the team, you as a servant leader have to go ahead and see how you can best change that to somewhat, to a high productive level. Rejecting the person or going ahead and saying that let's not, poke your nose or, kind of going ahead and blocking that particular person from interfering in the internal state of affairs of the team is not the best way to go forward in agile. Very very important. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome inside the team, and don't think from the perspective that you have to shield from outside interference, and all forms of outside interference is bad. Now there is no hint in the question which goes ahead and tells that the R&D executive goes ahead and unfortunately pokes his or her nose and causes some disturbance in the team. No hint. Let's read on to the question. Second sentence says, in one of the sprint reviews, the product owner becomes upset when he got to know that the team worked on the requested features. Now, the product owner can get upset for any reason or whatsoever. Can definitely get. He's also a human, and he might have some valid reasons to get upset. But in no way or the other, if he or she is upset that the R&D executive is, going ahead and causing some tantrums inside your team, or going ahead and pulling down the productivity, or is the reason behind why he or she is upset? Absolutely not. So, what could be the challenge out here? In fact, that's what is being told or asked out here. So, which of the following means reveal as to how should the project manager deal with the problem? Now, what is the problem out here? Why he is upset? You'll have to first ask that. Product owner, the Scrum team, yeah, the Scrum team or the team of developers. By the way, the product owner and team of developers are all part of Scrum team. Even the Scrum master as well, right? You know it very well. Now, the product owner is responsible for the product. You know it very well. The Scrum Master is responsible for which aspect? The processes, the agile processes, right? Now, the product owner, when he goes ahead and refines the product and product in the product backlog and goes and hands it over to the team to go ahead and refine the same and take it forward to the sprint for their work as and when it comes, he goes ahead and sees to it that the team is working on the requested features, whatever is there at the top of the priority in the product backlog. But then, if say for example, someone of the form of R&D executive goes ahead and pitches in and asks the team to work on some other set of features whatsoever which he or she goes ahead and deems important, then that spells trouble if the product owner has not known about such kind of requests earlier. Let me repeat. Let me clear this up. So what I'm meaning is you have a scrum team. You have a scrum team where you have the scrum master, the product owner, the developers, the designers, the testers, whomsoever, yeah, the other team members whatsoever, doing their relevant work. Now what they are going on and doing in this course of the sprint, they obviously have the fine-tuned set of items from the product backlog into the sprint backlog out here where they have the set of features to go ahead and work on. Okay, absolutely good. Awesome. Yes. But then all these features, whatever are there inside the product backlog, are known to the product owner. As per him and also the Scrum team, these should be the list of high priority items. Now, if someone external to the team goes ahead and comes and directly pitches, to the Scrum team that you have to, or rather to the developers that you have to go ahead and work on these particular items, on some other items which are not there in the backlog, or even some items which are of less priority, than the high priority ones. But he goes ahead and says that no, 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 it is of high priority, and asks them to go ahead and perform. Then obviously, product owner has 1,001 reasons to go ahead and feel upset. And what to do in such cases? Obviously, you have to go ahead and deal with R&D executive going ahead and skipping the product owner and directly reaching out, right? Let the R&D executive and the product owner go ahead and patch up. Let them discuss and take the situation end to end. Option A talks about providing the executive access to the add new items to the backlog. Doesn't help this particular scenario, even doesn't speak anything about this particular issue out here. The issue is not about the R&D executive going out and having access to add the items in the backlog. The issue is all about you patching the R&D executive with the product owner and taking a solution, driving a solution forward. Option A ruled out. Option B, making sure that the executive issues change requests for new items. No, no clue whatsoever, or doesn't even stand a chance whatsoever in terms of change requests coming in this particular scheme of thing. Now, very important, many of my mentees sometimes goes out and mistakes driving solutions as change requests. We might be as such going out and doing in our real lives as well. Whenever there is a problem, we come out with the change request. So very, very normal scenario or thought process to go out and choose any option which stands out with change request as the best option for driving a solution. No, not out here. Get the executive and the product owner agree to a workflow. Absolutely the case. And bang on with the right way of thinking. Again, falling back to our original strategy, take the first 30 seconds to understand the case in entirety. come out with one possible option which has to be somewhat in line. And when you get that, that happiness as such is awesome. You just go ahead and choose that option and mark forward or move forward. Escalate to the upper management to ensure that the executive no longer interferes with the team. Well, precisely the point which I was making at the outset. No way an agile team will go ahead and see that someone doesn't interfere. If he or she goes ahead and has negative implications to the team, well, you work with the team as such, hand in hand, and make sure that those interferences are brought in the better side of things, but never in the extent of not making sure that someone interferes. Interference is not the bad word or not the best word to go ahead and take forward. Option D gets ruled out. So it is only option C which stands out. As you see, a working agreement between the executive and the product owner is the need of the hour to go ahead and help restore the order. Let me see your comments. Yes, absolutely, Indumati. Without consulting the PO, team did the work. Absolutely. So you have to consult the PO as at least the the R&D executive. Yes, absolutely. So those features can be added to the backlog and discussed and taken to the sprint. But obviously, the product owner needs to be enlightened about this entire thing. Once product owner and R&D executive agrees, you don't have to worry about those getting added to the backlog. All these will be part of the process itself. They will mutually agree, and those will get added to the backlog or whatever the needed scheme of things. Yeah, so you have to understand what's the key thing. The priority is absolutely as Ravi mentioned, and then only go ahead and take it forward. Yes, Aman, I'm not familiar with Agile, but I had used collaboration conflict resolution techniques to come to the answer. Awesome. Yes, absolutely. Collaboration. One of the best ways to handle conflicts. Absolutely, Aman. See, there are many ways to go ahead and take a drive forward the so, and whenever there is any conflict situation, go for collaboration. Works like magic, especially from PMI perspective. No, Anirudh. If you go back and see my explanation out there in the in this particular question, you get to understand why it is C, not B. Change request doesn't help solve the problems all the times. Okay, let's move ahead with the next question. And here goes the timer. Okay, so time's up. Anyone else with any of the options? Okay, so let's dig deep into the question. Okay, I see many of you choosing B's and C's. Let's see. Okay, so an agile team is blocked for several weeks on a problem. Okay, now one of the team members solved the problem. However, post release of the software, it appears that the solution being implemented caused the function to fail. Very, very important. Now, there was a problem in first place. Now, one of your team members went ahead and solved the problem. Now, after solving the problem, when the product has gone to the customer, or even what it says post release. Yes, so post release it has gone to the customer gets to discover a problem in the product itself which causes the functionality to fail again. Now that is the situation being given. The in charge for quality demands an explanation. Quite natural. Which of the following options reveal as to how should the project manager react to a tell the director that mistakes are inevitable but will get corrected. Now, very, very important. You should not defend anyone's mistakes. Now, very important to go ahead and keep this in mind as well. That, from servant leaders' perspective, we are also going ahead and think from the perspective that, if our team fails, I as a leader, will go ahead and say that, yeah, it's my failure. But then, doesn't mean that I go ahead and tell the director there is a failure because of me and mistakes are inevitable, but will get corrected. You don't need to worry. No, I need to go ahead and take some corrective actions. I need to own the mistakes and make sure or assure the director that the same doesn't get repeated again. Yes, mistakes can happen, definitely can happen. But then I can't go ahead and say that mistakes are inevitable. Inevitable means that you're going ahead and directly saying the directors or telling the director that let the client come with any of the requirements. We'll go ahead and deliver some product with some of the other errors or mistakes. Those are inevitable. Kind of replies obviously won't go ahead and help satisfy the requirement end to end. Option A gets ruled out. Now, very important, come out with definition of ready by working with the team. What is definition of ready? It is nothing but a checklist of items which you need to go ahead and keep in place or ensure are in place for any of the user story to get implemented. Very, very important. The question that we are asking while dealing with the checklist is the user story ready to be implemented? Now, what do I mean by is the user story ready to be implemented? Obviously, the first and foremost thing that I'm talking about is whether the story is matching the invest criteria. I had spoken about the invest criteria in details in one of my previous videos, so you can please refer to the same. And also whether it's matching or falling in place with the SMART criteria: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. Invest meaning independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. Remember these criteria. So, is my user story going ahead and matching all these criteria in place? Can it be implemented? If yes, then I have this full definition of ready, in place, and I can go ahead and take forward my story for execution. Now, is this the question out here to go ahead and deal with? The story was ready to be implemented. You have implemented it. You have come out with the solution, but there happens to be some gap in the product functionality, which causes the customer to go ahead and peg back at you saying that the product has again failed. Now, the person who had come out with the solution needs to come out with the explanations. And the explanation need not necessarily come from definition of ready. You have implemented it, which you are supposed to. But what definition will be applicable out here? Obviously, the definition of done. Why? Because it is the definition of done, which again is a checklist of items which each and every user story should obey to make it reviewable to the customer. So in the sprint demo, when you go ahead and review the feature to the customer, it has to agree certain points. Which certain points? Whether you have passed the unit test, whether you have passed the manual test, whether regression has passed or not, whether you have gone ahead and got approval of the relevant documents. All these facets being taken into play before being demoed to the client or the customer. Let me again go ahead and explain in short. Definition of ready vis-a-vis definition of done. Both are checklists, by the way. This is also checklist. This is also checklist of items. But definition of ready as such is a checklist of items which make sure that a particular feature is ready to be implemented. Definition of done is a checklist of items to make sure that the feature, whatever you have implemented, is ready to be demoed to the user. Remember these subtle difference between the two. In this case, the feature has already been delivered to the client. It's in the post-release phase where you get to go ahead and discover some issues with the product. So, which particular definition which will be more concerning to you? Obviously, the definition of done. The work with the team and examine the gaps. Absolutely. Why gaps? Because as per the definition of done, the feature was demoable. You have demoed to the client and delivered to the customer, but the customer has found some gaps. Obviously, the testing possibly didn't happen correctly, or you hadn't identified the acceptance test scenarios end to end, or you're not clear with some of the other facet. All those have to do something or the other with the definition of done. Review the definition of done with the team, examine the gaps, and take it forward. Option C is definitely correct. For all those who have chosen option C, you are bang on. Ask the team member to explain his rationale and lessons learned. Very, very important. Now, if there is some team member who has gone ahead and committed this error at his or her end, he or she is definitely supposed to explain the rationale behind it and also the lessons learned. Why? As we already discussed, your team self-organized, self-empowered. So whenever the work came to the team and you as a team went ahead and took the work with both hands, the person who is responsible for this particular item is accountable for whatever he or she goes out and does, right? So if there happens to be some of the other inputs from the customer that things are failing because of XYZ reasons, obviously the team member who is responsible for delivering the product is accountable, is responsible to explain his or her rationale and the lessons that he or she went out and learned. That is the key facet out here. Option D is also stand out. Warn the team member about not taking risky initiative. Absolutely wrong. Second part is definitely wrong. First part is more wrong. In Agile, you never warn any of the team members. So anyone who has gone ahead and chosen C and D are the correct users out here, or the participants out here. Let's see, go ahead and see what's the right options. As you see, agile teams should be accountable for their work. Very, very important. In the present case, the valuable lessons learned and also context of error get shared. Team needs to collaborate on ways to help prevent the problem by updating the definition of done. For example, checking environmental conditions. Very important. A lot of concepts out here, starting from definition of ready, definition of done, and also lessons learned and other facets with team being accountable in the agile perspective, comes in play. Very important. There are lots more to discuss about each of these facets. We normally do either in ours or even in our live sessions. If you have even some of the other doubts, feel free to reach me out over my email. Any doubts, any questions? B, C, no. I saw someone opting for C and D. Yes, Devyani, you're absolutely right. Even I presume it was not Santosh, it was Isaac. It was absolutely right. Yes, Santosh, absolutely. So entry criteria checklist, definition of ready, exit criteria checklist, definition of done. Very, very important. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. I'm just again sharing the YouTube link for anyone who is yet to join and you wish to share the link with anyone. Moving on to the next question. This is question 8. Great, guys. Up until this point of time, 7 questions, lot of things to discuss. 8th question. Here you go. Okay, so Dikshit says it's option A. Anyone else? Dimple, option D. Bang on. Anyone else? Okay, so Sumit says option B. Okay, so are there any takers for option C as well? Okay, so feel free to opt for any of the options. See, one of the reasons as to why I smile, at the options, is that I want you also to go ahead and follow the same strategy. When you look at the options, you should actually enjoy dealing with that. Instead of fighting against the options, which makes it even harder for you to, opt for the correct options. If you go ahead and enjoy, question upon question upon question, practice it, definitely the accuracy will spring up, and we have seen as part of our strategies as well. Absolutely. So I see Murli also going ahead and choosing option D. Let's dig deep into the question. Okay. Over the last three agile iterations, there's an increase of prolonged test work. What does that mean? So, say you are in the middle of, say, fifth agile iteration. Yeah, say in the middle of sprint five or something, and you are seeing that increasingly or progressively the work that you are doing or your team is doing from the testing perspective is going on an increasing trend or in increasing fashion, is increasing, the test work is increasing, the testing is increasing. Now such kind of scenarios can happen only when your user story, whatever you have come out with, is very complex. And in every likelihood, in such complex user stories, you're having dependencies from other user stories as well, somewhere down the line playing key or a critical factor or play. You might have to even test some legacy features as well, which might be increasing the complexity of the user story, the testing work, going ahead and seamlessly increasing. Now, very very important, it's not a bad thing to go ahead and test more. Obviously, any one of you will go ahead and say, what's the problem in testing? Yeah, there's no problem in testing. Testing is perfectly fine. But don't you find some of the other observation out here that even though the user stories, or the content what we are going ahead and taking is as per the velocity, the sprint velocity what the team can go ahead and safely dedicate or safely deliver, even though the team is taking the sprints or taking the work, or the user stories as per their velocity, the test work is going ahead and increasing whatsoever end to end. You might be going ahead and looking into the complexity of the stories and might wonder, can these stories be refined further? That is the key point to go ahead and come out with. Now the question is not about coming out with the paired testing policy. Work is more. You might dedicate two or three or even more resources. That's not going to solve the key or the main issue out here, the root cause. It's not the root cause of the problem. The root cause is not about the resources or the number of resources handling the testing. The root cause is about the bulk of the test work that your team has to go ahead and deal with. Option A gets ruled out. Option B, come out with an iteration of only testing, which means that, after all these iterations, come out with one iteration where you just test all the items. Does that solve the root cause? Every likelihood, the next sprint might have, stories which might be complex enough to take your testing activity again on the upward trend. It's not going on and solving for sure. Adopt test automation tools, again, just like option A. It's not about the hands who come in play in terms of testing. It's also not about the automation tools that you are making use of while you are going out and testing. Yeah, it's all about you going ahead and dealing with stories which are refined to an extent, where acceptance criteria or the tests can be made seamless with very less complexity in terms of the test cases whatsoever being dealt with. They might take more time, but then this prolonged test work will give way to seamless test work, if I may put it that way, that you are ideally looking forward to. Backlog refinement, greater deal of backlog refinement. Do I mean by that is, we have discussed it already in product backlog refinement. We're going out and refining the features, moving the not so important features down, moving the important features up. So if you do that, and then we refine the features, as per the invest criteria out there as well, with the user stories fitting that criteria, we'll go ahead and seamlessly see that these stories will have acceptance criteria which are seamless. Somewhere down the line, product backlog refinement has a big role to play in you having user stories which are, you know, meeting the criteria as well as, are testable, are seamless, and you have the features delivered as per your requirement. So be it in the form of an incremental way or even an iterative way or whatever seamlessly fits in, your test work, goes ahead and gets, I would say optimal extent, not necessarily less, not necessarily more, but it won't definitely be prolonged test work. It would be seamless. That is the key feature to understand out here in the present case. So let's see. So as you see out here, prolonged tests can result in or be the result of overly complex stories. So overly complex stories with a lot of features in play, not necessarily abiding by the invest criteria, can result in prolonged tests. Product backlog in refinement is a way to go out and reduce this complexity of the stories by breaking them into smaller and smaller packages. Any doubts, any questions? Yes, backlog refinement, root cause, absolutely. So you see why D is the standout option out here, not any of the options. Pay very very close attention to this. And by the way, if you are looking forward to revisit the video again, you can definitely do that. It will stay recorded in YouTube. The same link which I provided, you can just go ahead and check back the link out here. You'll be able to see the link on YouTube at any point of time. You can pause, unwind, rewind, do anything. Make the most out of all these videos, even the ones that I have gone ahead and recorded earlier. Okay. So moving on to the next question, question 9. Here you go. Okay, I see one option as option A. Okay, Aman, Indumati, anyone else? Any other options? It is linked to the previous question. That's a big hint. Even the answer to the previous question as well. Give it a shot. If you want again, you can also feel free to. Okay, let's see. What's the answer to this question? Bang on, Murli. Awesome. Okay, so over the last three iterations, there is an increasing trend of prolonged test work. The same scenario which we discussed last question. The team performed an intensive backlog refinement. Now, this was the option previously, right? In the previous question, come out with the backlog refinement to go ahead and somewhere down the line, decrease this prolonged test work problem, make it even more seamless. Which of the metrics would show that the problem got effectively addressed? Now that you have effectively addressed this problem by virtue of intensive backlog refinement, which of these options will go ahead and reflect, or which of these metrics would go ahead and reflect that the problem got effectively addressed? Option A, hike in value per story. Now, value per story, how do you go ahead and measure the value per story? Is it the story points which deal with value per story, or is it some other parameter or factor? You don't have any metric or any parameter to deal with value per story. Number of stories completed per iteration. Now think through. Just revisit what we discussed the previous case. Refined backlog as such, in terms of you going ahead and having a refined strategy for product backlog refinement, you having those prioritized set of features, less complex, smaller stories to deal with. And when you have smaller stories to deal with, what goes ahead and increases in terms of you going ahead and working end to end inside the sprint? Isn't it the n or the number of stories that you are dealing with? It's precisely what option B is talking about. Speed of resolving impediments. Now, prolonged test work was never an impediment for you. You can't go out and brand impediments or blockers to your prolonged test work whatsoever. So you can't go out and safely say that you have increased the speed of resolving impediments, or even the fall in backlog item count. You can't go ahead and say that there has been a fall in backlog count whatsoever. But if you just go ahead and think about the previous question end to end, you'll definitely go ahead and get a definite clue as to why option B, which says there is an increase or hike in the number of stories completed per iteration, has to be the correct option. So let's see. As you see, backlog refinement results in smaller and less complex stories, which was precisely the point which got drove by the previous question, and that in turn goes out and helps the team to complete the stories even faster. Anyone any doubts or queries? Yes, Thanai, absolutely right. Matrix velocity, yes. So be absolutely velocity. Perfect. Perfect, Indumati. You have, as such, gone ahead and rightly mentioned the matrix which we are talking about. Number of stories completed per iteration reflects the velocity what we are going ahead and attaining. And that velocity itself is the key feature or perspective out here to go ahead and show the increase in effectiveness of how the problems got resolved end to end. Okay, so let's move on to the last question of the day. Here you go. Okay, so we are done with the time. Shivaji says that it's option B. Anyone else? Any option? Okay, so take some more time. Before we wind up the discussion, after obviously describing the answer to this particular question, I would also like to share my LinkedIn address for you. Can feel free to connect with me over LinkedIn and or post me a message or any query at any point of time. And also here's my email ID. So feel free to reach me out if you have any queries anytime. Okay, so option A, Anagha, Sai, Ashish. Okay, let's see what's the right option for this particular question. Okay, so as a project manager, you wish to know if there's a good combination of T-shaped skills in your agile team. Which of the following can the project manager measure to help determine the same? What same? Whether there is a good combination of T-shaped skills in the agile team. Now, what are T-shaped skills? Very, very important. When you go out and come out with an agile team, you're looking forward to team members who are cross functional. And T-shaped team members precisely help you meet the same. What do I mean by that? Now, say for example, I am a team member inside an agile team. Say I am a tester in the design team. Now, if there are developers in the design team as well or in the development team, I might go ahead and have to pitch in with development, with the developer team. So likewise, if I was a developer out here and say, for example, the testing team might have needed my inputs or my help, I might have seamlessly fit into their shoes and also gone ahead and helped them seamlessly. So what does T-shaped mean is I do definitely have the relevant skill or bandwidth or knowledge in my domain, which is development. Simultaneously, I do also have the other skills and other facets that are needed for me to go ahead and help the team horizontally. Horizontally in the sense intersections with other team members, skill sets. T-shaped. Not only I do have the specialization in my skill sets or my core scheme of things, I also do have relevant bandwidth or not bandwidth, the skill sets in other facets, which are intersecting with the other team members as well. That's how you go ahead and form a cross-functional team, which is highly productive, just the way in which, Agile would ideally look forward to. Faster delivery, faster results, productive kind of, way of approaching the work. Now you're looking forward to team members with a good combination of T-shaped skills. Now, which of the following can help the project manager measure to go ahead and help determine the same? Greater degree of collaboration? Absolutely. That's what you're looking forward to. But only with the SMEs or the subject matter experts or with the full team. I would have rather voted for this option if it would have talked about the team in entirety. It's talking only about the SMEs. Let's ballpark this option for now. Reduced internal knowledge sharing. Well, if there is reduced internal knowledge sharing, will that be a definite measure for the project manager to come out with the relevant weightage or relevant decision in terms of whether you have a good mixture of T-shaped individuals in your team? I don't think so. Fall in reassigned tasks. Very, very important to go ahead and dig deep into this. Reassign. That is the key thing. First and foremost, going back to the basics, self-organized team. Now, whatever tasks you are assigned, or even the work that was given to your Scrum team, you being part of the self-organizing team have gone ahead and taken work to your own kitty and have gone ahead and started to go ahead and get those done to entirety. Self-organized, right? There's no wrong in doing that. But after getting done with all the work that's in your kitty, there might be some of the other tasks which you still haven't catered to, or the same tasks which you are not good at, and might require the need of some other team member. Now, very importantly, if you are cross functional, and say, for example, I as a tester was able to seamlessly fit into a developer's role, or a developer who seamlessly fit into a tester's role, you know, obviously doesn't need to go ahead and reassign any task, right? So, any task, whatever gets assigned to me as an agile team member, I will go ahead and take that end to end to completion with fullest of efficiencies. If there is a fall in the reassigned tasks, it means that I am slowly and definitely and surely gaining in the cross functional kind of skill sets inside my team. Rise in T-shaped skills inside the agile team. So this happens to perfectly or seamlessly fill in or fit in into my choice. I need not reassign the task. I, being part of the self-organized team, will make sure that the tasks get done to completion without anyone having to bother even a single, a penny or even a single second towards, making sure that the task again get done over and over again. Following the reassigned task, critical way to go ahead and ensure that there is a good rise in the T-shaped skills inside the agile team. Following the detected defects, nothing to do with the defects. Yeah, so even a team with lack of T-shaped skills can also deal with the defects. There's nothing special about that. Obviously, doesn't stand out. Option A, again revisiting, which we had ballpark. Had it been greater degree of collaboration with the team, I would have chosen for this option. That is not the case. Option A gets ruled out as well. The only standout option is option C. So let's go back. As you see, presence of several T-shaped members aid in greater degree of collaboration and faster execution of assigned work. Very important. Assigned work. Whatever gets assigned to you, you execute those faster with greater degree of collaboration. Now, the greater efficiency in doing this particular aspect or executing the assigned work end to end with utmost efficiency, in turn helps ensure, very importantly, that there is a fall in reassigned tasks, which is precisely the question what it is asking you about. Generalized expert or generalized specialist, absolutely, that's the point or the term for cross-functional or T-shaped individuals. Okay, so we are done with all the 10 questions out here during the scope of the entire tenure of precisely 1 hour 35 minutes from now. We have gone ahead and dealt with, the entire range of questions end to end. A lot of things that came up newly, and I definitely, saw a lot of participation from your end. It's great to see participation and also right kind of thinking. The PMI way of thinking is very important. You know, reading books, definitely, going through a lot of resources, solving a lot of questions, definitely worthwhile. But until and unless you are solving the right questions or the questionnaire, and until and unless you are fitting inside the PMI way of thinking, the job becomes increasingly difficult for you. Definitely be able to pass, but how about passing the smartest way? That's where EduHubSpot comes in or pitches in with all the kind of offerings from our end. Okay, Stephen. So time management is definitely crucial. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely crucial. Absolutely, definitely time management is not only about time management, it's about fine tuning, both your mind and body to go ahead and help think the right way forward. The fag end of the journey, I would like to go ahead and ask you if you have any questions. Feel free to go ahead and again put forward the time in the chat. So timing in the sense is 230 minutes, 180 questions. So 180 questions to be dealt with in 230 minutes, 1.26 minutes per questions to be precise. Thank you, Ravi. I'm just looking forward to helping every one of you. And you know what? I feel the happiest when I see LinkedIn posts, saying that got PMP certified, and this particular weekly session definitely helped, boost my preparation. That definitely is the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to. Up and over that, any kind of help, feel free to reach me out any point of time. Okay, so let me share my LinkedIn ID with you guys out here. Please feel free to reach me out over LinkedIn and also email me at any point of time over uh, obviously your emails. And also, if you're looking forward to getting done with the PMP within September, yeah, with no preparation whatsoever up until this point of time, it can be done. So reach me out at any point of time. Can also have a look at all the set of offerings from EduHubSpot's perspective. And here goes the live sessions that we'll be conducting on 11th of September. So feel free to go ahead and participate in that, enroll in that, and also let me know if you have any issues in enrolling. We'll be the happiest to go ahead and take you forward. So ours is an entire journey end to end, making sure that we have the mentorship along with these live sessions going in. So it's a one-on-one kind of mentorship along with the rest of the cohort. Interactive sessions which makes or takes your preparation to a different level altogether. Yes, it definitely allows repetition of work whatsoever. So following videos obviously on various topics is definitely useful. But then which video to go ahead and opt for is also very important to go ahead and take forward. You need to know what to study, how to study, and very importantly, how to balance things out. We at Edu for never saying that you have to leave everything out and then only go ahead and take it forward. No, it has to be done the smartest of ways. After all, you are going to get PMP certified. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your participation. So, likewise, we'll again go ahead and have the next weekly session on various topics or obviously dealing with agile perspective, new set of 10 questions, and also obviously new set of thought processes, answers, and also the strategies to help go ahead and take that forward. Okay, so be there in the mock test or go ahead and attempt the mock test based on your level of preparation. We will tell you what percentage you need to go ahead and appear in the or get in the mock and take it forward. So we have that task cut out, but we can't just go ahead and comment out generically to anyone about the percentage that you need to go ahead and attend in the mock test. So it all depends. There are someone with even 45% in the mock test who have gone ahead and attained above target in all three domains. So it entirely depends on how your preparation is shaped up. There's also someone with 80% who might have gone ahead and attained say above target in two, but target in one. So there's where mentor's role goes there and comes in seamlessly. There is no need to go ahead and follow any of the textbooks in entirety. Those are entirely for your reference. And PMP is not based on any of the textbooks. It's loud and clear. It's not based on any of the textbooks. Yeah, so even if you go ahead and thoroughly memorize any of the textbooks out there, then odds are high that you might not be getting any help. Questions can come out of the blue from any, as you have seen out here as well. The next live session will be the next week itself on Thursday, the same time out there. And if you go ahead and subscribe in eduhubspot.com, we give you the website ID. You can go ahead and subscribe. Just enter your email, click on subscribe. You'll definitely get the notifications when the next weekly sessions are going to come. It will be on our channel itself. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and there also you'll be able to see when it will be held. I understand, Sunny. Percentage of maths questions, well, we are going ahead and seeing a lot of maths questions going ahead and featuring in the exam. Sometimes it's very less, sometimes it's relatively more, but definitely there are a few maths questions which also appear. You don't need to go ahead and have any phobia about maths, then definitely it will be taken care of. No, Ravi, it's only once one now. So we are having it only once. And also for bootcamp participants, we are having it twice. So, making sure that one of our other mentors also goes ahead and has a weekly session with you every Saturday for all those who appear for bootcamp. For them, we are going ahead and having it separately. So please feel free to visit my other videos if you haven't done that. So if you have happened to miss out any of the part of this particular video, so please feel free to go back to the recording. It's again available or visible out here. And as always, show your love, comment, share this video to anyone who is looking forward to getting any help, and share or even email me in my inbox. I'll be more than happy to go ahead and help you out. Okay, then. So we are at the fag end of today's session. See you all next week. Till then, take care. Take good care of your health as well. That's very, very important. And of course, stay happy. Stay happy, stay positive, stay focused. If you are in the midst of a preparation, shoot me a mail. And definitely I'll be there, helping you out the best way possible. Till then, take care. Bye bye.